What, colleagues? We can start, right? Okay. So, good morning, everybody. I hope you can hear me and see me well. This is Fabio Nascimbeni, Country Liaison for Palestine from the European Training Foundation. And I'm glad to welcome all of you, especially to welcome all the Palestinian colleagues to this validation meeting of our work around the lifelong learning policies in Palestine. And this is going to be the national validation meeting of some work we did. I will leave all the details to my dear colleague Mihailo. For the moment, just a quick mention by me on the importance of this meeting, because we are putting particular attention from the European Training Foundation on monitoring the state of affairs and the way we can support Palestine in terms of skills development and lifelong learning policies. And of course, starting from data and starting from what is happening on the ground is, let's say, our stepping stone and our starting point. So again, it's a big pleasure to be here, and I would like to give the floor for the welcome to Jihad Draidi from the National TVET Commission, chair of the National TVET Commission of Palestine. Jihad, please. I see Jihad in the list. I don't know if you can hear me well.
You are muted, Jihad.
There you are. No, you are muted again. Yes. Yes, now it works.
Now it works. So thank you.
Okay.
That's
Good to see you, dear Jihad.
my young man, Ahmed. All thanks to him. Good morning, Fabio, and good morning, all the colleagues joining this session concerning the Torino process and the report that we will discussed during this meeting. This is actually a good starting that to express our gratitude and appreciation as an NTC, the National TVET Commission, since I am now the acting chairman of the commission, and also as the head of the TVET department at the Ministry of Education, to express my gratitude and appreciation to the tremendous efforts made by the European Training Foundation and the experts who also prepared this report, and definitely all the stakeholders within Palestine and abroad who did some valuable comments and input to accomplish this report and make it in this final form. Actually, this report is the outcome as an outcome of the sixth round of the Torino process for the period 2022 till 2024. And this process is being launched in close cooperation with all the national stakeholders and partners. And definitely the review process has been into multiple stages, including disc research, reviews, visits, field visits, interviews and discussions within focus groups. The importance actually of this group is also, since it is a midterm review of the vocational education and training, and the focus is on providing in-depth analysis of the policies and the arrangements that affected the system performance, focusing on the lifelong learning perspectives and competencies, and definitely to look within the governance of the system and the accessibility and the quality, taking into consideration all the processes and the context that we are facing, especially in Palestine. And as you know, that the main focus or the primary objective of the Torino process is to describe and analyze the national development and definitely identify challenges within the TVET system, focusing on human capital development, and to provide a deep policy review and generate some practical advice on transition from TVET institutions to lifelong learning systems. This meeting actually is, from my perspective, is really critical to evaluate the opportunities of the current arrangements and governance, as I said, within the TVET system, and to highlight some of the issues, including the inclusiveness and effectiveness of the TVET system. Hopefully that within our discussion today, that we will give some reflections and insight, on the report, to ensure that the system, the TVET system of Palestine is equitable and provides opportunities and responsibilities and responsive to lifelong learning scheme, and definitely to look into how to improve the performance and more focus on strategic goals and plans. Actually, I hope that today we will have a very fruitful and productive discussion, and to come up with some concrete actions that we can, move forward and carry on within the next phase of the implementation of the TVET strategies in Palestine, and definitely of all the key stakeholders and relevant partners. And definitely I would like to express my deep appreciation and gratitude to my colleague, Engineer Ahmed Uthman, who has been deeply involved in all the aspects of the follow-up within this process and report, and definitely to Dr. Rabih Murrar, who prepared and elaborated the report from the Palestinian side. And thanks are also expressed to all the parties that were included in this report, the ETF and all the consultants and my colleagues also within the ministry and the heads of the TVET schools or TVET centers and other TVET institutions and the heads of divisions and all the colleagues that were involved in this process. So this is a big thank to all of you colleagues. And again, Fabio, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Jihad. It's great to hear that. And actually, as you say, this has been actually a collective effort led by our experts and let's say validated today by you. But the beauty of this is that it's really a way for the system to come together around this analysis. Thanks again. Mihailo, please, the floor is yours for a quick welcome, and then I leave you the guiding.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Dredi and Ahmad and all colleagues. I'm really happy that you found time and the possibility to join today. Dr. Dredi already mentioned about the significance of this work from your side, from our side. It is also significant because every time we do a policy review, we learn a lot, but also it helps us to keep Palestine on the radar, on our own radar and on the radar of all the partners with whom we work. And this is one of the very good ways of doing that, by focusing on very specific issues, on very specific success stories, on very specific proposals. So for us, this exercise in some ways, in a different way, but it is equally important. If I have to summarize the experience so far, it is with this English expression that, you know, when there is a will, there is a way, because one would have said, how can you do a review if you cannot go there? How can you do a review in a country that is being currently exposed to so many challenges at the same time? And still, because of your willingness to be open, because of your will, we managed to actually carry out a policy review. There are not that many countries that are carrying out a Torino process policy review, and I'm very happy that Palestine is one of them. During the day today, you will hear a little bit of a summary of what our team, based on the information you have provided, has found, and we will then have a reserved time to discuss, well, not only the findings, but also the way ahead. So I'm really looking forward to the next steps in the event. I realize I have quite a lot of talking to do today, so I better stop now before saying everything in advance. Fabio, back to you. In any case, thank you very much for coming. I hope that these 2 hours will be rewarding for you.
Thank you. Thank you. Just a housekeeping note to say that whenever this is an informal meeting, it's a validation meeting, and so feel free to join in through the chat, to comment if something is not clear. There is Arabic interpretation by clicking on the word button on below in your screen. You can move to Arabic. And I will just now leave the floor to my colleague Denise. Sorry for the noise. And for this, for the recap of the results of our work in Palestine. So Denise, the floor is yours.
Sure. Thank you, Fabio, and hello to everyone. I'm glad to be with you here today. I've been working as a member of the Torino process team for Palestine. I'm moderating this next session, and just to give you an overview, we will have, let's say, 2 sets of presentations. The first 15 minutes will be from Mihailo and Christiana, giving an overview of the Torino process results, monitoring results, and of the policy process review. And this will be followed by a presentation from Rabeh Morin, as you know, and Will Bartlett on the results of the level 2 process. So over to you, Mihailo, again, and to Christiana for the overview. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me, I think. All right. So we have a PowerPoint. Hopefully we will be able to make our point with that. So we can now start sharing our glorious presentation. So we have a presentation with a lot of slides, so I will kind of rush through them without going into too much detail, because in reality, what my colleagues Rabeh and Will have to say is probably much more interesting to you. If we click and show the next slide, you will see that we are trying to keep 2 things apart, and we always start with that so that participants have an idea of where we are and what we're discussing. So the Torino process has these 2 levels of participation. So one of them is what we call monitoring. It really covers all countries with which our agency is working, and it's much more data-based. It looks across the board of different topics and into all countries at the same time. So it is in some ways very global, but also very superficial. And so it is very helpful to understand where to look deeper. So it was like the starting point for the review activity itself. And so those next few slides will tell you what we have found in 2025 about the situation of that in Palestine, as a snapshot, as an update from the 2024 round of monitoring when we were launching this review. You see, we also had similar set of slides, but they were based on information from last year. So it is simply in a way to set the stage. And then, of course, what Rabeh and Will are going to present is much more interesting, much more relevant to you. But in any case, the level 1 is the monitoring, and level 2 then are the reviews that go in depth and try to contextualize the monitoring findings and explain perhaps why some results are like this and others are like that. So Palestine, like a few other countries, participated also on level 2. So the results we're discussing today are actually the results of level 2. So Christiana is going to say a few words about, in general, how these reviews work, just in case you're wondering, how do you know all these things and who told you so? And so in the next slide, you'll see the first overkill of charts and bars and numbers. I'll simply tell you what this is. It is simply a snapshot of how much evidence is available across the countries with which ETF is working. And I thought it's important to show you this slide because this is limited to the internationally comparable evidence. And you can see that despite the difficulties, despite the challenging situation, if you look at the Summit region here, you'll see that Palestine is among the countries that has a lot of evidence, internationally comparable evidence on average. And this is really remarkable because we know that there are all kinds of challenges currently. And so one would have expected that perhaps a context in which there are all kinds of challenges such as conflict and so on, it will be difficult to find internationally comparable evidence. But in your case, you have managed to improve the situation with evidence since 2023. Part of the explanation here is that you have also participated in the PISA assessment of the OECD, which also delivered a batch of data. But in any case, I thought it's remarkable to show that despite difficulties, you are among the countries that has information. In the next slide, you will then also see that an interesting phenomenon, which may be also interesting to you. Here we are showing the availability of evidence for monitoring, for informed decision making, by the broad areas, access, quality and relevance, and system management. And here again, I've marked Palestine with this black square. You see that like in other countries, it looks like we all have much more information about the system and much less information about the people in the system. So it's quite an interesting phenomenon, and Palestine is part of the same trend. So we have information about, the material base, we have information about quality assurance, we have information about the provider network. But if you look into, do we have the same level of information, the same amount of information when it comes to quality? So what education, training can vet deliver? Do we have the same amount of information regarding access? You see that evidence is much more scarce. So it's quite an interesting observation, and Palestine is part of the same trend where we know more about the system and a little bit less about the people in the system. And so with that, I move on to the next slide, which where we try to sort of assess in the monitoring of 2025, okay, we have evidence, but do we actually know how much demand there is for learning, how much demand there is for education and vet? And in this slide, you can see that among all countries with which the ETF is working, if we would take the share of youth, the relative size of the youth population, if we take this as some kind of a proxy for the need for education, you can see that Palestine is one of the countries with the biggest share of young people. And so this means that we can sort of project, and you already know this better than me, compared to other countries, there is a certain amount of pressure on the system of education and training to provide places to ensure proper access and also to deliver quality. The size of your youth population is much bigger than in other countries on average. In the next slide, we also try to somehow assess what is the demand for education and training by people in working age, by adults. On this slide, you see two things. You see that people who, this is the employment rate, so by the level of educational attainment, and you see that in all countries with which we work, usually the more education you have, the bigger the chance that you will have a job. Palestine is not an exception. And here means that those who have low or no education, adults who have low or no education, are at the biggest risk of staying unemployed. Palestine is not an exception from other countries in this respect. And if you see this red dot, if you click once again, you will see that there will probably red dots. I hope there are there? Could you please click once more on the slide? Thank you. Thank you very much. So the red dots show you what is the share of people in working age who fall in the category of low or no education. And you see that this share is quite high. So this means that there is demand for upskilling and reskilling of a substantial segment of people in working age, because these are also the people who are the biggest risk of staying without a job or struggling to find a job, or if they find a job, it's very likely they're going to be in some kind of a vulnerable employment. So here again, trends or the situation in Palestine is not very different from other countries participating in the Torino process. And the proportion of those who may need attention, adults who may need attention in terms of opportunities for upskilling and reskilling is quite high. And if this is not addressed, you will have a substantial proportion of people who are at risk of not finding proper employment. Next slide shows you what is the situation with access and participation here, and this is something where Rabbi will discuss much more in detail, so I will not dwell too much of that. You see that the blue bar shows that system performance in support of access for young people to vet is not very high. In Palestine, we know that there are certain obstacles such as cost, the material base of providers, and so on and so on. So here performance is relatively weak compared to other countries participating in the Torino process. The likelihood that once you enroll in vet, you'll graduate is a little bit better. So this means that, in fact, once you enroll in a vocational program, there's high chance that you're also going to graduate. But still, also here, the performance is not particularly high. In the next slide on quality and relevance, you'll see that Palestine, like many other countries, but perhaps a little bit more, than other countries is struggling a little bit to deliver sufficient quality and relevance in its vet programs. And one of the reasons for that is because, in fact, the share of young people who are underperforming, who are lacking foundational skills, is quite high. The orange and red dots here show you what is the situation with the skills, foundational skills and competence of adults. As you see, the situation is much better. And this is most likely because once people graduate, they may not have the skills needed in the labor market, but once they graduate, they actually have a chance to catch up. So most of these results here for adults come from experience, which was gained once people enter the world of work. Final two slides are about the conditions of teaching and learning. You see that because of the situation, Palestine is struggling much more than other countries included in the Torino process monitoring with a material base in education and training. This orange square shows the situation in the physical infrastructure. There's nothing new here for you. For us, it's simply important because when we have a slide like that, a graph like that, we can show the situation in your country in context, and we can then have a stronger argument to send messages when it comes to how to prioritize support and which factors contribute to the weaker results in quality that we have seen in the previous slide. And the last slide is interesting, the last slide of those that show some of the monitoring results. It's about the role of human resources in school leadership. Whether the human resources and school leadership are adequate. And here you see for Palestine quite an interesting situation. It's not unique. There are some other countries like that where it looks like vet providers have less of a problem with school leadership. So you do have a group of people in charge of leading the vet schools who are actually qualified, but there is really a discrepancy in the quality and availability of teachers and trainers in the schools. And so while school leadership is less of a concern, unlike in very many countries in the monitoring sample where you see that this orange dot, which shows the professional capacity of school leaders, the performance here is low. In Palestine, this is not necessarily the issue. In Palestine, the issue is much more with the teachers and trainers. I'm pretty sure that you're going to hear something about this also in the next part of the session when Rabbe will present the results of the monitoring. So this is just a snapshot to show you, sort of to put the results of Palestine in the context, because in the next part of these 2 hours, we're going to dive very much into your own context. So we're going now to isolate ourselves and look into the situation we have found through the review. I'll stop here and perhaps I'll hand back to Denise to introduce the next part, which is what exactly the policy reviews are about. Before then we go into looking into the results of the policy review. Over to you, Denise.
Thank you, Mihailo, and also for presenting so much information in such a short time. And even if I may say so myself, with some very impressive graphs. Okay, so now I hand over to you, Christiana, so that you can give us more details then on the level 2, the policy review process.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Denise. Thank you, Mihailo, for presenting us the outcomes of the first level of the Torino process. Thanks to all colleagues here today for this validation, which is an essential step in the process of a policy review. So thanks a lot for being with us. Mihailo was presenting the level 1 results. You see that in the architecture of the Torino process, we have this first level, which is the monitoring. Now we are entering into the second level, and I'm going to give a brief overview of what are the features of this second level. Basically, what is the policy review about? How is it structured? What is the methodology followed? So first of all, the objectives of this policy review that we call the level 2 of the Torino process are to support lifelong learning policies, operationalization, looking at the system performance in the overall lifelong learning. Secondly, the intention of a review is to increase policy learning on lifelong learning through exchange and through exploration of possible options through recommendations. And last but not least, also improving data collection on lifelong learning and therefore reinforcing monitoring and evaluation. Next slide, please. Thank you. The process for the policies review has three specific features. First of all, it is highly participatory. Since we want the country to have a full ownership of a review of the analysis conducted, the process and the methodology followed for the review required the participation of a wide number of stakeholders and through site visits that were made possible thanks to our expert Rabe, and who guided the dialogue throughout the review process. Secondly, the reviews are demand-driven. They are, let's say, run by ETF based on a specific request from the country. So we do not run the reviews in all the countries we work with, but we need a formal request from the country. We had one from Palestine. We also had from other countries before that we have already concluded, such as Bosnia and Herzegovina, Armenia, Georgia, and Egypt. Lastly, these reviews are based on research, yes, which is the first phase, but with a lot of room to interaction. So field visit and dialogues with stakeholders to understand what are the specifics of, in the case of Palestine, of a Tibet system overall. And finally, the important phase is this validation moment when we present the findings and collect the feedback from the participating stakeholders. Next slide, please. The overall scope in the case of Palestine of this review is to look at the overall TVET system, focusing on lifelong learning. As a specific scope in the case of Palestine, and this is next slide, please. Thank you. We are looking at three specific angles of TVET, looking at policies and practices influencing the performance of a system. First, looking at access to vocational education and training and adult education, so to initial and continuing, the quality and the relevance of education and training provided through TVET, and lastly, looking at the system overall efficiency in terms of resourcing, so both financial and human, governance, and the quality assurance. Next slide, please. This is just a summary of the process in terms of implementation modalities and the timing. It was nearly 1 year ago that it was December 2024 when we launched the review. We consolidated our team of experts and had an online launch event to present the process and to agree on the next steps. Afterwards, we had from January till April the desk research phase and the production of an issues paper, let's say, which was a way to agree on the areas to focus on. The third phase, which followed, was the phase involving mostly all stakeholders. So after the desk research, site visits and direct consultations with stakeholders were conducted with the great help of Rabe, who met the various stakeholders on the field. And then the last phase started, which we are concluding now. So the preparation of the report, the validation event today, After today, we will collect the feedback from the participants in order to complete and release the report publicly. Okay. Thanks a lot. This is all from my side, and look forward to the presentation from the experts who were directly involved with the review. Thank you. Over to you, Denise.
Thank you, Christiana. Yes, so for the next 40 minutes, let's say, we will have the presentation from Rabbe and from Will, the experts who undertook the research for this report and the compilation of the report. So after that, we will have the discussion. We will have time for a discussion. We will have almost 45 minutes for discussion. So, but in the meantime, please go ahead and post any questions that you have in the chat during the presentation. So please, Rabbi, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Christiana, and everyone in the ATF team. I'm happy to be with you here today to present the main finding of the policy review. Good evening, everyone, or good morning for people who are still in the morning. I would like to thank everyone who participated in this review. First of all, William, who highly supported me and worked with me side by side in this interesting report. The ATF team, who also highly supported me in all the data and all the document, and also the revision step by step to be here with you today discussing this draft. Also, the NTC team, who also supported me during the fieldwork, the interview on the ground. Ministry of Labor, who also coordinated with the training centers on the ground. And also all the stakeholders who opened their doors to me during the field work. As you said, or as Mihailo said, and also Christiana, that this work was based on a very comprehensive field work. I met many of the stakeholders from different government, NGOs, private sector, and also students who are engaged in TVET centers. There was more than 40 interviews with all the different stakeholders on the ground. So the data, you can say it's a very comprehensive data that we collected from the ground. So the result here is based on, very comprehensive survey from the different stakeholders and the TVET centers on the ground. I would like here to discuss the main challenges, and also I will focus on and mainly on the policies. There is a lot of things inside the report. I recommend to read the draft. There's a lot of success story inside the report about TVET centers in Palestine who had like a very good success story in access and monitoring and evaluation and quality assurance, etc. So here just we would like to summarize what is we call the main bottleneck in the system. And the main idea of this review is to have these comprehensive set of policy recommendations based on different pillars of evaluation, which will be very important for us in Palestine to start from like a benchmark that we can start from to improve or to structure well or efficiently our TVET system in Palestine. So I will skip the first slide, which were discussed by ATF team about the review. So let's start from the key finding and recommendation. So we will discuss first the institutional framework, policy framework, quality assurance, and the private sector engagement, mainly through work-based learning. but I will focus mainly on the challenges in the Tibet system in Palestine regarding quality and relevance of the Tibet, and also the one of the most important things is the impact of conflict in the Tibet system in Palestine, then finish by the key recommendation. So I will skip or go quickly on the first slide that it is very well known for you as a stakeholder in the Tibet system in Palestine. So the institutional landscape in Palestine is fragmented, which was mentioned in many reports before. The main reason is the national umbrella of Tibet in Palestine is still not structured very well. There was the NTC Commission, and you all know that it has many challenges in the last few years, and which finished or end in April 2025 by a decision to dissolve the NTC, but this decision was frozen, but we can say that the Tibet system or the NTC is not still not or inactive. There is a lot of stakeholder in the Tibet system, mainly from the public sector. We have the Ministry of Education and Higher Education, Ministry of Labor and Social Development, in addition to UNRWA, which mainly govern the Tibet schools and community college that run by the UNRWA itself. We have the NGOs, which also have monitor a lot of the Tibet institution, which is very old, and some of these institutions back to 50 or 60 years ago. We have also a lot of private institutions that also manage Tibet programs, either independent private or through the university, mainly continuous education program. So the core issue here is the fragmented governance, which lead to a duplication of responsibility and significant policy inconsistency. As I said, that the NTC, there was a decision in 2005 to establish the Higher Council for Tibet, and then in 2014 there was a decision to establish NTC, which only being reinstated in January 2022, and in April 2025 there was a proposed dissolution of the NTC. Consequences of that fragmentation, we have a challenge in policy and reform stagnation. The NTC is now functionally inactive. The step to the proposed dissolution of the NTC was a step backward, further worsen the governance system, which was already face a lot of challenges. There is also the second challenge is quality erosion and duplication between different ministries, and also between the public and private and NGOs. There is a proliferation of unlicensed, low quality private centers, which many of these centers are unlicensed, mainly in the Area C, where the public institution cannot manage. Also, we have a human capital gap that we will also highlight in the next slide. The coordination mechanism is one of the main challenges, either inside between the public institution itself, or between the public institution and the private sector, or between donors. That in the absence of central body, we find that the donors have like a bilateral coordination with individual ministry, which might lead to overlapping and fragmentation. Regarding M&E, monitoring and evaluation, one of the key challenges is the data silos. So we know that M&E mainly based on data from the ground. So we have different sources of data. We don't have like a unified database. We have also information deficit at micro level, which we can based on to build like evidence-based decision making. So everyone based on his own data to plan for future TVET programs. There's also one of the key challenges, the poor market alignment and the absence of unified market information system for skills forecasting. We find that there is like rely on informal signals or perceived trend, which lead to mismatch between market and the graduate from the TVET or academic institution. And we have a lot of trend nowadays in Palestine and in different TVET institution, in addition to university, like e-marketing, digital e-commerce, etc., which might be very interesting in for Palestine, but without any evidence that the Palestinian market, how much of these graduates will absorb in the next years. Regarding the policy gap, yes, there was like national TVET strategy in 2010, education sector plans 2016, 2023, and Ministry of Labor strategy plans, which was very important and highlighted a lot the need for matching between the private sector and the educational and TVET system, but still there is a policy gap between what is in the strategic plan and what in reality, which also back to what we have mentioned before about the lack of unified strategic vision in the absence of efficient body for umbrella for the TVET in Palestine. Regarding quality assurance framework, we have the NQF, which was established in 2022, but still not functioning. Also, we have the Palestinian occupational classification. We have also strategic support, the educational sector strategic plan, which support also the development and use of both NQF and POC. But still there is an absence of central authority or a national quality assurance authority which can monitor and evaluate the TVET outcomes and also the input that come through the private sector, which should in the best case scenario to be aligned with the TVET output. In addition to the fragmentation, we have weak M&E culture in Palestine. This was evident by the absence or the lack of tools to be used regularly in the M&E or systematic M&E. Quality control efforts focus on inspection and in input paperwork rather than continuous improvement based on regular feedback and adaptive planning. Data on student performance and outcomes is still also a big challenge in Palestine. Also licensing and standardization deficit we have. As we said that licensing focus mainly on input, not on quality. There is also a huge competition between the different TVET institution, either between the private itself or between the private and NGOs, with lack of unified standards and lack of a qualification for the trainer, which will be discussed heavily in the next slide. So regarding private sector also, we have like still we discuss this issue since 15 years, but still we have the same problem of mismatch between the private sector needs and also the TVET outcomes. The root of this issue is the main cause is the lack of work-based learning. Yes, there is a huge effort by the Ministry of Labor, Ministry of Education, and also donors, but still now the private sector has like mainly after October 7 and the economic challenges still has the impression that the work-based learning is like more a burden for the private sector, not like advantage. And there's an important for sustainable funding mechanism and robust national framework that give a kind of motivation and incentive for the private sector to be engaged heavily in the work-based learning away from the fund from donors. We find that the private sector will be very active when there is like a wage sharing or wage subsidy from the donors. Otherwise, they think that such work-based learning programs, mainly for small enterprise and SMEs, small and medium enterprise, they think that this is a kind of financial burden on them. So let's go to the challenges for the TVET system, which is mainly come through the interview with the stakeholder in the ground. I would like to look to the hour to see that I'm in the time. So I would go first to the access to the TVET, and Mihailo show you that Palestine regarding access to TVET is still below the average in the region and also in other developing countries. So we have like 6 main challenges for access to TVET program in Palestine. One of the main challenges is the financial crisis, mainly in the last 2 years. Many students blocked by unsustainable transport cost, insufficient budget, and unstable donor dependency. And we will discuss this later in details. We have also a resource and infrastructure gap, modern equipment, mainly for example, electric cars or AI related TVET programs is still not available and very expensive for many of the TVET institutions in Palestine. A trainer shortage is one of the key challenges, mainly in market relevant TVET programs, digital and AI. We have also a broken work-based learning, which I mentioned before about the impression of private sector or view of the private sector that the work-based learning is a financial burden. We have also one of the key challenges that exacerbated in the last 2 years was the mobility barrier, checkpoint, and road closure due to the occupation, which led to many of, or we can't say many, but a significant percentage of students to drop out from the TVET programs, mainly women, due to the safety risks. Also, the social stigma. Yes, it's in Palestine. It's become much better that the social impression or the social stigma is not like 10 years or 5 years ago, but still that there is the lack of career guidance and cessation of services for students with disabilities is still one of the main social stigma for TVET in Palestine. So here the cost of access, inability to afford tuition, and increased transportation cost or doubling, tripling led to withdrawal or dropout for many students in the TVET institution, which was mainly from the people who live outside the main city or from the rural area who come to the city for TVET programs. The cost of programs, yes, there's a free programs in the Ministry of Labor centers and also funded program from many of the NGOs, but many of the programs in the private sector, even that the private sector tried to decrease the tuition fee or allow for different payment for the tuition, but many of the students still think that the priority now is to provide to save the money for daily life, not for TVET program. Family prioritize, like I said, basic needs, food, rent over education. There was like insufficient funding, mainly from government. Government budget failed to cover essential running costs. We here talk about raw materials and daily consumables. So when I met with the TVET institution from the public sector, there was like a gap in these material, which also the financial crisis for the government is one of the main reason. Shortage and inadequate facilities, mainly for new programs like electric cars. You know that electricity cars or need like expensive infrastructure, which limit the enrollment of a student and to access for hand-on training. In other center, we find that there is underutilization of assets. There is like equipment often donor funded, but there is no trainers or no raw materials, which also the lack of qualified trainers who can operate these equipment, and the lack of raw materials, which was one of the main challenges to access to this program. The industry linkage also, institutional rely heavily on donor funding to purchase equipment and raw materials, and in the absence of such programs, we find that many of these institutions work at their minimum capacity. Digital and training gaps was also evident in the TVET system in Palestine. We have like yes, remote learning was one of the solution for the political situation in Palestine, but for many programs it was not functioning. Mainly the programs that need hand-on practices, so students risk graduating with gaps in technical competence, and we find that this was evident in many of the vocational schools in the Ministry of Education, and also in community college in the university. There is, as I said before, the high cost of modern technology limit access to these cutting-edge courses like AI or hybrid and electricity cars. Shortage in qualified training, mainly in that the AI and digitalization is a topic which is still recent in Palestine. There's a lot of discussion about, and there is a lot of programs in the university that comes every year, but we still lack qualified trainers in these fields in the TVET center. Even if they are available, they are very expensive, mainly if we talk about constraint in the government institution to contract people from or trainers from the private sector, and also for the private institution also to attract such a qualified, which is very expensive for them. Then they need to balance with the tuition fee, mainly in the hard economic situation in Palestine. One of the main issue here is the quality and relevance risk. The digital ecosystem for quality tracking and certification is still immature in Palestine, which is we need like a real data or on-time data that can track a graduate, or digital tools that can track a graduate from the TVET institution, and also that can track dropout student from the schools, which provide a real data that can be very interesting to build future TVET programs. Based learning also was one of the main challenges to access for either IVET or CIVET. The lack of structure and accreditation. Work-based learning, yes, we find that it's a very well-known concept for many of the Tibet institutions, and there was many donor programs or donor WPL programs, but it's still not systematic implemented. It's mainly based on donor fund. Apprenticeship are often unaccredited, unpaid, and not closely coordinated with the private sector. And when I visited the schools or the TVET schools, one of the main challenges was to find like web-based learning for the student because of the situation. A lot of the students find the training opportunity close to their homes because of the checkpoint, and which make the monitoring and evaluation and the training quality very poor for some of these students. Private sector hesitate, as I said before, because of the economic crisis for many of the SMEs, which lead to quality gap and oversight. There is a lack of national framework to assess the quality of such programs. Yes, there is a follow-up from the Minister of Labor, Minister of Education, but there is still a lack of institutional follow-up system for which we find that it's mainly focused on the content, not on the outcomes or how much it aligned with the market needs, which is still also a value issue in Palestine, from school to school, from center to center, from it's based on also the personal relationship or the personal connection or networking between each TVET institution and the private sector. Some of the TVET institution was very successful in networking because of they have like a very strong and old relationship or networking with the private sector and with the Chamber of Commerce. Other couldn't have the same, network, but it's important to have like a institutional framework for that. Dropout and retention, which was mainly because of the financial difficulties. We found that the rates are between 20 and 25%, mainly due to the collapse of family income and increase in transportation costs. Mainly, this was evident in the private TVET institution and also in some of the public TVET institution. Also, it depends on the region. For example, in Northwest Bank, where there was like attacks from the Israeli occupation on the cities there was like a huge dropout in the first year of the war. Expectation mismatch and guidance failure. We find that many of the students choose specialization without sufficient guidance, either from the schools, if they are in the schools, or based on data from the labor market. So this is mainly based on sometime in vocational or sometime on personal communication between students themselves, and also based on some data from the social media, etc. There was no clear labor market data that can guide the student for TVET. University education leads some students to leave the vocational track. Still, as I said, the stigma, the social stigma for TVET still exists in Palestine. Many of the institutions still lack a structural retention strategy, either formal policies or early dropout alerts or counseling with the students who are expected to be drop out. There was like adaptation and resilience between TVET institution to use like a hybrid model and offer financial flexibility, installment payment, accommodation, mainly in some of the NGOs in Jericho and also in Bethlehem, but this is not evident in many of the TVET institutions, mainly in the private sector. The mobility in the ground was one of the key challenges, like I said, which hamper the access of students to the TVET institution, and also for work-based learning due to mobility between the place of training and the place of work-based learning, mainly for students who live in outside the main city, and also many of the private SMEs were closed or in the first year of the war. If I found that I visited some vocational centers for students with disability, and this was one of the main, what I can say, sad news in Palestine, that disability is still a vulnerable group in Palestine. The war impacted the access of these group to the TVET centers more than any other vulnerable group. The financial crisis has led to the closure of essential services like assisted transportation, mainly in the public TVET institution in Nablus. There was like a transportation or a cars through the Ministry of Social Development, which provide free transportation for people or for students with disability. But since the beginning of the war, they stopped or they ended this service. And when I met many of these students, and I find that sometimes it's a very like a daily, sad story for each of them to access to TVET institution in Nablus. In addition to that most of the people or all of the students outside the main cities who have there is checkpoint, etc., they drop out. Only the student from the main city, even they cannot access to these diverse institution easily. Gender disparity, it's I find that there is a improvement in social stigma about gender TVET access to TVET, but still there is like parents favor university over TVET for daughter who view also vocational certificate as merely symbolic rather than qualification for them in the labor market. I met a lot of these students in the class, and mainly in the high school or TVET schools. And when I ask them what they will do after they finish these the tawjihi, most of them, or the more than 90% of them, will go to academic fields in the university, not for TVET track. They asked me that they told me that we are we think that university is still much prestigious than vocational training, and we also based on information or from pressure from our parents, our family, if we go to vocational training. But the situation is much better than before. Safety and mobility barriers was a key challenge for women due to the checkpoint and road closure. There was also a severe challenges mainly for women due to the financial burden and loss of income for household for men, mainly who was working in Israel, which was also a challenge for women to be enrolled in continuous programs. Even I found that when there was like donors funded a program in Ramallah and other region, there was a lot of women that come. I find that the availability of child care, like in one of the TVET institution in Jericho, was one of the key opportunity for women also to enroll in TVET program. I still have the quality and relevance of TVET, quality, commitment to quality. There is like internal efforts from different TVET institutions to improve the quality and monitoring and evaluation, but still we have like a systematic barriers. The absence of unified national framework for curricula or training qualification and monitoring still create uneven standard across the sector, which was very evident because of I found that there was like a gap between different institution or TVET organization due to the quality of programs. Adaptation and resilience, TVET Center adopt hybrid model and reassign existing staff to cover a new specialization like smart building and electric cars. But still to face the shortage in training, but still there is a gap in quality when you shift between old, for example, traditional car to electric car. Some of these trainers need to be equipped with the skills before they enrolled in training programs. Weak accountability and graduate outcome tracking, inadequate system and methods. M&E relies heavily on manual and irregular, unorganized process. Student feedback, where-based learning track, which is still unavailable. Digital evaluation certification system and unified institutional data collection platform are not widely implemented in the TVET institution or for the stakeholder, either the Ministry of Education or Ministry of Labor, Ministry of Social Development, or even UNRWA. Deficiency in work-based learning, there is a gap between in the supervision and follow-up for work-based learning. The financial situation for many of the public institution and the lack of cars and sometimes transportation for supervisors in the public schools and also public TVET centers to go to rural area or to training center to supervise the student is one of the key challenges. Also, the responsiveness to labor market needs. There was a positive examples that I found that many of the TVET institution, mainly also NGOs and also government TVET centers in Hebron and in Bethlehem, also in Jerusalem, was able to, and also the schools, also the TVET schools, they were also to enrich the TVET programs with digital and hybrid cards, AI tools, and also incorporate 21 century skills like entrepreneurial thinking, communication, and there's a program. And there's a lot of success story that I mentioned inside the report. But responsiveness to labor market is still a challenge in the TVET system in Palestine. Private sector involvement in shaping the curriculum remain limited. Yes, there is a lot of TVET institutions that ask the private sector for a meeting to discuss, but many of the private sector told that, or the chambers of commerce and representative of private sector say that it sometimes become like routine meetings, not to equip them with the needed data and information. And the government ministers lack data for skills anticipation. Donor dependency was of the main challenges. Yes, it's a very positive to find, like also in Palestine, the lack of government fund and budget from the government. The donor dependency or the donor actors are very important in building the TVET, which was very evident in the last 20 years in Palestine. But sometime in the when there is like what happened during the last 2 years, and the shift between developmental aid to humanitarian aid, and sometimes when there's like for what happened to US aid, then there is like a risk of donor dependency for many of TVET institutions who told us that we are ready to be engaged with AI and electric maintenance cars, but we are waiting for a project from the donors to buy the material and to prepare the lab or the infrastructure for these new specialization. The conflict affected, I discussed that in the West Bank. I discussed highly what mainly transportation cost and access to TVET institution, and the impact of unemployment rate on the income or family income, which also affected the access to TVET. In Gaza Strip, the situation is catastrophic for TVET infrastructure. More than or nearly 22% of schools were destroyed, either fully or partially. Over 60 university buildings have been destroyed. More than 2,300 educational facilities from kindergartens to university have been destroyed. The foundational investment required for TVET, specialized workshop, heavily machinery, IT labs, and practice training space has been reduced to rubble. So there is in addition to the loss of human capital due to the death and also injured of many of teachers and trainers in the TVET institution. As of September 2025, over 17,000 school students and 1,200 university students and around 1,000 educational staff has been killed due to the genocide. More thousand were injured. So we can say that the infrastructure and the basic infrastructure for TVET in Gaza is not available at all. There is need for emergency response to the situation in Gaza and restoring of TVET sector, either equipment or a human capacity. There is like a huge opportunity for everyone to work in Gaza, because it's like they are starting from the scratch to build the TVET institution and the infrastructure for so this is why this study was limited to the West Bank, because we cannot estimate the situation in Gaza Strip because the system was heavily destroyed. So let's go to the key recommendation. Dennis, how much time I have for the recommendation?
Well, Rabbi, could you do it in a few minutes then, just so that we have sufficient time for the discussion? Would that be enough?
Okay. So for TVET system management, it's important to reinforce unified governance and strategic planning, empowering a unified NTC, which is I think it's a key issue in the TVET system in Palestine, to empower the NTC and to have the ability to monitor and to supervise all the TVET system in Palestine. This kind of fragmentation and duplication of effort is not healthy, is a step backward for everybody. So it's important to empower, equip the NTC with the authority to manage the TVET system in Palestine. Also strengthening the market information and data-driven decision maker. A unified labor market information system is very important for evidence-based policy making, demand-driven program development, and skills forecasting. It's important to develop and implement functional digital evaluation and certification system for systematic tracking of student progress, training outcome, and graduate employability, moving away from manual and the regular method. Everyone say that the employability of our graduate is 90%, but most of them are unemployed on the ground, on reality. So this is because of the lack of such a tracking system. It's important to enhance political will and commitment, as I mentioned, mainly to empower the NTC to be able to monitor the TVET system in Palestine efficiently. Unified national TVET strategy. The recent strategy is outdated back to 2010, and many of changes happen since that time. To integrate contingency planning, because of the contingency state in Palestine, it's important to update the activity strategy. NQF is very important in Palestine to provide a national map of qualification and making them more transparent, comparable, and consistent with the qualification across the different sector, and to clarify and to give a pathway for everyone in the TVET system. It's important also to address the lack of formal recognition for skills outside the traditional pathway, which currently reduce their visibility and credibility in the labor market and limits also progression. Quality assurance is very important. Here, some of the key recommendations: establish a national activity quality assurance authority, robust licensing and accreditation process, mainly in the private sector or in the government stakeholder who monitors the private sector TVET institution. Unified standards, curricula, and competency assessment, which is very important and was of the key challenges that many of the NGOs and other institutions said that we have give the same certificate as a new private institution which is unlicensed. So it's important to have like a unified standard to prompt flexibility in learning opportunity. Private sector engagement is very important. Incentives are very important in this regard to provide financial incentive for private sector. Resource sharing is very important between the industry and the TVET institution, and to support SMEs by building their capacity to be able to host trainers and to articulate their skill needs. National framework for structured work-based learning and apprenticeship is also a key point. Regarding access, increase government budget for TVET, diversify funding sources such as cost sharing with industry and or local endowment to ensure the sustainability of TVET program. Aid for students mainly from rural area, handicapped, disadvantaged group like rural areas, and women and persons with disability. Flexible payment plans is very important actually, and fee waivers for vulnerable group. Invest in educational resources and equipment, mainly in modern and high demand specialization, AI, hybrid cars, and renewable energy. Funding for personal equipment to help students to acquire necessary equipment such as computer, which are increasingly vital for persons who will engage in digitalization or in AI specialization. A national robust framework for work-based learning is also very important. This needs standardized framework. Here I would like to subsidize transportation for students, mainly in the who come from outside the main cities. It sometimes need a government budget allocation for these students. Flexible payment for is also very important. invest in state-of-the-art and specialized equipment, software, licenses, and raw material is also needed. Vocational rehabilitation require trained professionals who are currently in short supply, mainly to be able to capable of working with person with disabilities, which was not available in most of the TVET institution in Palestine. Regarding gender awareness is still very important, mainly for women to access the non-traditional field. Regarding equality, standardized data collection and tracking and evaluation system. Employer feedback mechanism is also essential. Track-based work-based learning is still also policy should mandate the implementation of national mechanism for assessing the quality and consistency of practical training component, and strengthen systematic follow-up mechanism for WBL and graduate, including employer satisfaction survey and impact assessment to create crucial feedback loops for program. Thank you very much for your listening, and very sorry for taking more time than needed, but the report is very comprehensive, and it needs a lot of time to highlight most of the interesting point, but I'm still open for any question during the discussion session.
Thank you very much, Rabbi, and well done for really presenting so much information in such a short time. And I think it really reflects the comprehensiveness of the report and the complexity of the issues, but also I think what stood out from your presentation is really, you know, your firsthand experience, really like being on the ground and, you know, coming face to face with all the different issues, which unfortunately for those of us who can't, who are not able to go to Palestine at this time, it really brings home the various challenges that you're all facing. So without let's say any hesitation, I'll pass over to Mihailo, who will moderate the next session, which will be the discussion on the findings and recommendations presented. Mihailo.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Rabbi, for this presentation. It is, of course, an impossible task to compress the work of several months into the limited time we have. Still, I'm sure that participants in this meeting may have recognized one finding or another. This is essentially a description of the reality on the ground, of things you know and see every day. So my assumption is that some of you may have something to say. There are no right or wrong questions. It's not only about questions, you can also comment. So essentially the floor is open. If you would like to say something, comment in any way, please go ahead. In any language, but we are limited to English and Arabic.
Okay. If you allow me, Mihailo.
Sure, please go ahead.
start.
Hello, nice to see you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rabih. Thank you very much for your detailed and in-depth presentation tackling the issues of the TVET system in Palestine. Actually, we need a discussion, not 2 hours. I think 1 week is not enough to address all the problems and the challenges that have been highlighted in the report, but it's actually good to focus on some key issues that also might be helpful to develop the next phase within the policy and the strategy. But before that, I want to comment on issues regarding Gaza Strip. First of all, I would have some conservative point of view regarding the conflict. This is not a conflict. This is an aggression by Israel on the Palestinian people. That is what has been going in Gaza Strip and in the West Bank. and definitely we have to highlight this. I know that the terminology that might be presented in the report should keep some sort of sensitivity, but at least within the discussion, it should be clear to our colleagues that we are being under this kind of aggression day and night. It's not only since 2 years, but this is a long story, and it's not the field here to discuss this. Another issue concerning Gaza, just to highlight that the number of schools that have been totally or partially destroyed is actually 297 out of 319 schools. This is all the academic schools. For the TVET schools, we have one in Beit Hanun in the northern part of Gaza Strip that has been totally destroyed. And in Gaza Strip, also in Gaza City, I mean, also the schools and the vocational units being totally destroyed. We have only one partial destruction within Deir al-Balah. This is like in the middle and the south of Gaza Strip, and it is being used as residence at the moment for the displaced people within the strip, and it is definitely in functional. Concerning the challenges, I would suggest colleagues that we reflect those challenges into a next action plan. I mean, when we are talking about access, we should develop or materialize some activities that would provide better opportunities or better access to the TVET system, and this can be also, cascaded into all the other issues that have been tackled within the challenges. But I want to say one issue in terms of the capacity of the system at the moment. Actually, before this meeting, just a few minutes ago, we were discussing with my colleagues Ahmed and Mu'taz the number of enrollment this scholastic year into the TVET schools at the moment, not all the TVET institutions, but to know what is the situation in our schools. We have a high demand of applicants applying to schools in most of the specializations, and we don't have enough space and availability to comprehend this high number of students. I mean, once we finalize the report, we can also share it with you colleagues to see that there is a demand for more establishment of vocational institutions in general, not only schools. But I would say that the only approach from my perspective in Palestine to expand the TVET system is not to rely on the government itself to establish a new TVET institutions. I say TVET institutions, whether this is a technical college or a VTC or a school or whatever. Even from the NTC point of view, would say we have to develop what is called like a TVET academy, where you have different levels of training within the academy, exactly as the situation in the university, where you have different level of degrees. Because as Dr. Rabih highlighted, the high donor dependency on funding is challenging, and we have been suffering within the last 3 years of this tremendously. And at the same time, the private sector is always ahead of the government in terms of, looking at the new techniques and modern training, etc. So the work-based scheme or the apprenticeship scheme is actually the scheme that should be highlighted and focused more within the coming strategies. And again, we should look into some of the incentives and perspectives that could enhance and encourage the involvement of the private sector within the TVET training process, and of establishing TVET institutions rather than only depending on the government. Just to highlight some issue, this year we could not recruit engineers and vocational teachers on permanent basis for almost 80 vacants. And we have recruited temporary contracts because we have established new vocational units at schools, and at the vocational schools also, and the government and the Ministry of Finance and the General Personnel Council could not provide the adequate number of the human resources for recruitment. I mean, the issues are a lot, and the issue of the upgrade of equipment and equipment becoming obsolete, and the government even could not cover the running costs of the TVET institutions, including the practical tests and the practical training, because as Rabih highlighted, that there are consumables and you have to have all the time new materials for training coming into the schools. I mean, there are issues related to quality assurance. This is quite challenging, and I think that within the coming new policy and strategy, this should be taken into consideration a little bit more. We have to look into the quality of the TVET providers and the TVET programs, and maybe we need to reshuffle some programs based on the AI and based on the new technologies, especially within the car, the automobile systems or the automobile industry in terms of hybrid and pure electric cars. As far as the strategies are concerned, the ministry has a strategy, and the NTC, by the way, has developed a strategy. This strategy is still a draft because it has been applied to the Ministry of Planning, but the Ministry of Planning suspended this strategy since the decision to dissolve the NTC in last April, and my colleague Hamdallah definitely can elaborate more on that. Actually, there are so many points, but I want to give the floor to other colleagues, I mean, and to make sure that also they can reflect on the discussion. Thank you very much, Mihal, you and colleagues. And if the time allows, then I may also elaborate more on some issues.
Thank you very much, Dr. Brady. What you're saying is important because, you know, when you see the report, when you see the number of recommendations, it's clear that there is a rich choice of things to focus on. One of the things to keep in mind is probably it won't be possible to focus on everything at the same time. At the same time, I'm also aware that many of the efforts are already ongoing. But for example, what you said, you in fact proposed some kind of a prioritization for you. You started talking about the private partners and the need to reach out to them much stronger. Then you very naturally progressed to the issue of the challenge of recruiting, finding and recruiting teachers and trainers. And then in the third place, you mentioned the material base. I understand that all these things may appear equally important, but it's very unlikely that you'll be able to do everything at the same time. So I think that this will be one of the biggest challenges to agree among yourselves and also with international partners which things are more important, which things can be done in the medium term, and what can be left for the long term, because doing everything at the same time is certainly not feasible, in my view. In any case, colleagues, the floor is still open. Thank you very much for your reflections, Dr. Dredi. Is anybody else who want to comment, suggest something?
I see Mahmoud has his hand raised.
Sorry, I don't see that for some reason. So thanks very much, Denise, for helping.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good time, everyone. If I can speak in Arabic, because we have translate.
Absolutely.
Okay. اوكي. مساء الخير جميعا. لاحظت يعني في التقرير انه كان في بيانات واضحه في العرض الاول بخصوص كثير اجراءات وتحسينات تمت على نظام التدريب المهني، التعليم والتدريب المهني في فلسطين، وفي بيانات متقدمه كمان كانت واضحه عن دول ثانيه اخرى. وفي المراجعه اللي عرضها الدكتور رابح كان في عندنا بعض الملاحظات الجوهريه والكبيره كمان في التقرير. بس في شغله اساسيه يعني ممكن الحديث عنها، هي الهيئه الوطنيه للتعليم والتدريب المهني إنها هي من 2014 تأسست وأغلقت حديثا أو تم تجميدها. بس ما بيعني هذا إنه إحنا ننتظر الهيئة الوطنية للتعليم والتدريب المهني، بما إنه السياق الفلسطيني مختلف نوعا ما عن السياقات الدول الأخرى. والتقرير كان واضح إنه في نجاحات كبيرة حققتها المؤسسات التفت الفلسطينية في التدريب، في تأهيل المدربين، في البنية التحتية، في تطوير القدرات، مع وجود بعض الضعف. يعني الفكرة إنه إحنا نستمر في تحسين السياق الفلسطيني أكثر لحين ما يكون في عندنا مظلة جامعة على التيفت في فلسطين، مع وجود الوزارات التربية والتعليم ووزارة العمل اللي بيشتغلوا كثير في هذا المجال، وصار في عندهم يعني خبرة منيحة في المجال، وفي عندهم أذرع تنفيذية في المحافظات والمدن. والسياق الفلسطيني هو بيحتاج لا مركزية في العمل، وهي موجودة في ظل وجود إنه في عندنا مراكز تدريب في كل محافظة ومدارس صناعية في كل محافظة. بينما الهيئة الوطنية للتدريب المهني من 2014 ما كان لها أذرع تنفيذية في المحافظات في المناطق، وهذا يمكن ما خلاها تأخذ دورها بشكل كبير أو ما خلاها تعزز إمكانياتها. فيعني اقتراحي إنه إحنا نعزز السياق الموجود حاليا أكثر لحين وجود هيئة وطنية. آه، نشتغل على الحوكمة أكثر، نشتغل على تعزيز قدرات العاملين، نشتغل على تحسين البنية التحتية. بعتقد أنه راح نحقق نجاحات على المدى البعيد أكثر من اللي بتحقق على المدى القصير. في العلاقة مع سوق العمل والخبرات الموجودة في سوق العمل يمكن تفيدنا كثير وتساعدنا في تأهيل المدربين، تطوير قدراتهم، التعاقد مع مدربين حتى في سوق العمل. هذا بتطلب منا إن تحسين في النظام المالي في المؤسسات التبت الموجودة لحتى نقدر نتعاقد مع مدربين من سوق العمل. موجود مدربين في كفاءات موجودة في مراكز التدريب والمدارس الصناعية، وفي كفاءات أعلى زي ما حكى الدكتور جهاد إنه سوق العمل كثير متقدم عن مؤسسات التيفت. بس إذا تم التعاقد والتواصل مع مدربين وخبراء في سوق العمل، بعتقد إنه راح نكسر هاي الفجوة ونقللها. وكمان في خصوص الجودة، أحكى الدكتور رابح إن يعني في فجوة بين المؤسسات التيفت. أعتقد إنه السياق الفلسطيني شوية مختلف عن سياقات ثانية، إنه إحنا في عندنا مراكز تدريب مهني تتبع وزارة العمل، وفي عندنا مدارس صناعية تتبع وزارة التربية والتعليم. سهل انك مثلا تعدل مناهج او تحسن قدرات مدربين او تغير حرف وتعدل ورش تدريبيه في مراكز التدريب المهني، لانه التعليم يعني مختلف شوي عن التعليم في المدارس الصناعيه اللي ما بتقدر تحسنه بشكل سريع، بيحتاج سنة على الأقل لأنه مرتبط بامتحان الثانوية العامة. فهو أنه ما في فجوة بعتقد كبيرة، زي ما أنه بيختلف بالسياق بين وزارة ووزارة. وحتى لو كان في هيئة وطنية كمان راح هاي الحالة تظل موجودة. فهي ما بعتقد أنها فجوة كبيرة، بقدر ما هو فقط أنه في تعليم مدارس صناعية أشبه بالتعليم النظامي، وفي مدارس وفي تعليم في مراكز التدريب هو يمكن في عنده مرونة أكثر، لأنه ما بعد التعليم النظامي او ما بعد ما انه الطالب يتخرج من المدرسه او ينهي تعليمه الجامعي بيقدر يلتحق بمراكز التدريب. ففي مرونه بتكون اعلى في تنفيذ السياسات اكثر. اقتراحاتي هي انه نركز على الجوده، الحوكمه في مراكز التدريب، نشتغل على اللامركزيه اكثر، نعزز النظام المالي اكثر في مراكز التدريب. بعتقد انه راح آه، نحقق تقدم منيح ونكسر فجوة كبيرة ما بين سوق العمل وما بين التعليم والتدريب المهني في فلسطين. الاستعانة بالجامعات وبالخبرات الموجود فيها أكيد كمان بيعزز من قدراتنا، فكثير يعني بيحسن وبطور من مستويات مراكز التبت. ومشكورين وشكرا لكم، يعطيكم العافية.
Thank you very much. It's an interesting reflection because essentially it shows that the recommendations we have in the report, they provide enough material or inspiration to start thinking about specific ways making certain things happen, even in quite challenging areas such as teachers and trainers. We're kind of I won't say we're running out of time, but time is not extremely generous to us right now. So this is why I will not comment too much anymore on what is said. I'll simply move on and ask whether there are any other comments. We see in the chat that there was a question about the report. When will it be shared with everyone and so on? And I see that also Ahmad confirmed it will be provided after the meeting. There's a possibility to also say something more about the NTC status. I would maybe leave this for the very end, just to be sure that there are no more substantive comments on the report itself, and then we can move back again to you, Dr. Drady, for a moment. I also see that Nisran Bari commented that in past the ETF Torino process, we used to first review the report and then do the verification. We thought that in this particular case, it may make sense to first hear this presented in that way, and then you will be able to receive the draft. We also, in this particular case, we have had these discussions when we were preparing the report. The field visit itself, I understand, was quite extensive. So our assumption is that most of you were one way or another contacted in the process of preparation of this report, but now is the first moment when you see it all together. In the formal presentation, we're going to discuss then with Dr. Drady and Ahmad and my colleagues at ETF what are the next steps specifically with the draft. So we're going to come back to that for sure. So thanks for asking that. Are there any other comments at this stage to what you have heard? If no, Dr. Drady, you said that you would like to
I have
add
a
something
comment
about the
before
NTC
talking
status.
about the
Maybe
NTC.
go back to you for a second.
May I?
Yeah, but before,
Oh, William,
yes,
sorry, William, you wanted
yes,
to say
William.
something too?
Yes,
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
yes,
Sorry,
William.
If it's, yeah.
the
Go.
hand symbol was, but no, I just
Sorry, I don't see this for some reason on my screen. I'm really sorry. I don't disregard. I just didn't see. If there's anybody who raised the hand, please
yeah.
just shout at me. Otherwise, I will not see it. I don't see the hands.
No, I just wanted to make a quick comment that there might be an opportunity for policy learning across the different reports that the ETF has produced. For example, we did a report in Bosnia on work-based learning as part of with a focus on work-based learning, and as a sort of post-conflict country, there may be lessons that can be learnt from the Bosnian experience that can feed into the debate on work-based learning in Palestine. I mean, that was one of the key issues. You know, the SMEs are not regard work-based learning as a burden rather than a contribution, and so you know the improved relationships between the TVET institutions and the business sector are obviously critical, and the Bosnian case experience may provide some valuable lessons on how to do that. And the other thing that comes to mind is in the ETF also did a similar report for Egypt, and the focus there was on internationalization. And that's something that seems to be missing from the Palestine experience as far as the report we're discussing today is concerned. And it may be opportunities for TVET institutions in Palestine to partner or to reach out to TVET institutions in other countries in the EU or a neighboring area to internationalize and learn from other international experience and share experience and develop joint programs and so on. So that was just my own comment that there might be an opportunity to make use of the different ETF. The ETF could draw together across its various Torino process Part 2 reports for cooperation internationally.
Many thanks, Will. This is part of the message, I think, which is quite important, is that despite the specific situation of Palestine, many of the issues that are being discussed and the challenges that we see described in the report are in a way shared also with other countries also prioritizing some aspects of the tasks you have ahead. So it's a good reminder. We're going to share the link to the website where we have all these reports, the prior reviews in other countries released. So indeed, I think that there is potential for, I don't know whether for peer learning, but definitely some of the discussions we have in Palestine have also been led in other national contexts. So this may be of interest to you as well. Thanks, Will, for reminding us about that. Dr. Dreid, I see Anna's raised their hands. The hands are back, maybe because I
Yes, yes.
complained aloud and Zoom heard me. So I see the hands.
Thank you so much.
There's hope for us. Annas, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mihailo, Fabio, Rabih, and all for the very precious report. One of my best recommendations in the report is to shift to digital certification and evaluation, because I believe that it will contribute to the quality assurance. Also, it will contribute to simplifying the process of teaching and learning, and it will also address the challenges of mobility. So to me, it's very important. And I think, Kaman, one of the very important recommendations is the NQF, the activation of the NQF, because the activation of the NQF, in my belief, I believe that it will also support improving the quality of education. And the فوضى المؤهلات, it also ensures that all the licensed qualification providers are according to the pre-set criteria. So these are my best recommendations of the report, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Well noted what you say. We'll keep it in mind. I just trying to see, are there any other hands? I don't see any hands. So in this case, Dr. Dreidi, second try.
Yes, thank
The
you.
word is with you.
Thank you. Actually, I have two issues regarding the gender and the people with disabilities. You know, when we were talking about gender and providing non-traditional opportunities or training programs for women and girls, etc. You know, this is like a discussion all the time with the international partners and with the local NGOs and stakeholders. But I would like to have some suggestions from anyone who is joining this meeting to give us any experience in other countries, in Bosnia Herzegovina, in other countries within the Torino process, where they, you know, developing, where there has been a development of programs for females that are between parentheses are non-traditional. The other issue is, you know, concerning the inclusiveness of the people with disabilities in TVET systems in general. And you know, this is actually quite challenging because it depends on the case and the kind of disability, and it needs some medical reports to you know, determine exactly if this person can be integrated into practical training. And definitely now within the TVET system, I would say that there are soft skills, and still there is very hard task programs. I mean, we can integrate people with disabilities, but even with our discussion with the General Union of Disabilities in Palestine, I asked them many times that definitely we want to rehabilitate schools that can comprehend people with disabilities. But at the same time, I want you as a general union to recommend some careers that might fit into the training programs and definitely match the needs of the people with disabilities. Also, this question is generalized to all of you colleagues. If anyone has suggestions or any experience from his own country or from being internationally abroad or consultant, to give us some recommendations where we can also elaborate these within the training programs in Palestine. Regarding the NTC and the status quo of the NTC, actually, I've been in a meeting in the cabinet maybe a month ago with the Prime Minister and the other ministers attending this to discuss how to move with the NTC forward and what should be the mandate of the NTC within the Palestinian system, where the ministries and other institutions should keep the practical implementation as it is the case, but the NTC should be like an accreditation and quality control body, and this has been discussed in the report thoroughly in many perspectives, where there is a need to focus on accreditation and auditing of the programs to make sure that they can provide the outputs and the outcomes based on this. And this needs some legislations to be tackled or changed, because this is based on the presidential decree that has been issued to establish the NTC. And this has been a discussion within the cabinet itself. And lately, just a few days ago, they have advertised to recruit a new head of the NTC, and the advertisement is available on the General Personnel Council at the moment. And I think that within the coming few weeks, that there should be a new head of the NTC who will take the lead, I mean, with the process and to define or determine the new mandate of the NTC in cooperation with the Ministry of Planning and International Cooperation, because Dr. Stefan Salami said that this might be focusing on challenging more fund to the TVET sector, and I fully agree if that the NTC hopefully could do this very important role to mobilize new funds and resources to develop and support the TVET system. Thank you.
Thank you very
are
much.
muted.
Yes, I realized. Sorry about that. Are there any other reactions at this stage?
Yeah, just maybe a quick comment. In the meantime, there were talks in the background with Annabelle following the idea that Barthelin was putting on the chat, that is maybe to have later on in time, once the report is validated, even a larger presentation maybe to the TVET sectoral working group, so that let's say we can find some, let's say, use some time now to make sure that everything is fine in the report, and maybe have some further mini consultations as the NTC. So Ahmad, Jihad, you guide on this, but then at a certain point, it might be useful also to present the results and a very long set of recommendations, and I think gives an idea of the many things that can be done. And if this would happen when the new NTC is in place, and the new NTC could already pick up some of these, not of course as the exclusive areas of work, but as some areas, then we would close the circle, and that would be very good, especially in case new funds will be coming up. So I think it's a very good development, and thank you. Well, now Barthelin is no more with us, but I think it's nice if we do this in cooperation with donors. I know GIZ is also in the call, so we should sort of be as inclusive as possible in this. So thanks.
Thank you very much. I think that yes, I think it's just the beginning of dissemination of results, and also the beginning of broader discussions about which of these results are maybe more important than others. I think we're entering a cycle of in a way of commenting, but also of informing stakeholders about this work. I also think that because this kind of work doesn't happen every day, that this report will probably become a point of reference for some time, good or bad. So in this sense, yes, it makes a lot of sense to continue the dialogue we just started. And so the proposal of Annabelle is very welcome. And we will then definitely be able to come back to you with a more specific overview of what the next steps are. I also think that we are kind of running out of time. In theory, we were supposed to finish right now. We will not do this kind of a right now finish, because we also have the wrap up and conclusions part of the meeting. And I also see that one of the ways to signal that we transition to the last part of the meeting is by handing over the moderation to somebody else. So Denise, I hand back to you for basically for introducing again the same people who were speaking until now. It's
That's
pretty
right, yes.
amazing, yeah.
Yes, thank you, Mihailo. Yes, so this session, let's say we can take 10 minutes to conclude the wrap up. The first speaker at this session, of course, is supposed to be you, Mihailo. So, and I see there was a comment in the chat, perhaps, which maybe you could incorporate into your concluding comments here, just about the purpose and the outcome of the report from Ziad Rajabi. So if you perhaps would like to take that, so please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I actually feel very tempted because I spoke all the time until now to in fact reverse the order without having asked for permission before, simply do it in a very undemocratic way. And I'll ask whether Ahmad would like to say a few words, because Ahmad, you also, like Dr. Drady, you were one of the driving forces and you kept it all together on your end. So somehow I feel more comfortable if you would start the wrap up than I do. Would you like to go first?
No problem, of course. Thank you, Mikhailo. I think at the end of this meeting, personally, I have to thank you all for participating in this meeting, the stockholders and the ETF staff and the Palestinian staff. I think in meeting like this, the value of meeting is to convert numerical data to an evidence to build upon it. So some of the colleagues ask why do we need this numerical information or something like this. It's an evidence-based targeted to the decision maker they can build upon it, and it's done by our experts. But this at the same time, this report will give us a comprehensive and objective question that need to be answered by who will take the responsibility for policy making or for decision making. How we can take what presented and take it into a concrete steps forward to develop the TVET system. How we can take the strength that are identified in the system and this success story to make it, to build upon it and to make it as the usual for our TVET institution, and how we can address the challenges in a more organized way and inclusive way, so everyone is included in the discussion and finding the effective solution for it. So I think after this meeting, we need sometimes to digest the idea and the comments by our colleagues and maybe from some donors that they represent some new idea, new comments that needs sometimes from us to digest so we can reflect it into the report. After that, we have some internal meeting to finish the report and take this recommendation. So we can put it in public, everyone can use it. Even before we guide this report, another maybe people will use it for governance, for developing the TVET system. But I think at the end, that's what is important from this meeting and from the report, how we can take numbers and data and make them an evaluable target and make them things we can build upon them. So thank you all for attending this meeting, and the floor is yours, Mikhail.
Yeah, you're muted, Mihailo.
Yes, thank you, Ahmad. The part with the thank yous, I have put a long list of people that need to be thanked, but perhaps participants are much more curious about, okay, so what happens next specifically, you know? What happens next is that we're entering really a phase of a dialogue about this particular draft. I think that also in the course of this dialogue, we're going to learn about perhaps different perspectives about how certain elements in this report may be more important than others. We need to see to what extent this draft then will be adjusted and how and if. So all of these questions, we leave them open for now. So the main message perhaps is that this meeting is not the end. Actually, it's much more of a beginning. And as you see, there already is a demand for yet one more presentation and one more presentation and one more presentation. So really we're entering the stage of, in fact, consultations about this text. Rabbi, before you get horrified that this is never going to end, and that after every meeting you're going to have to present forever and ever now this report, like being in hell. You know, you every day you wake up and you need to present the same report, and then you need to rewrite and update and rewrite until it never ends. No, it's not like that. There will be, of course, a formal end to that. What I'm trying to say is that we have very many different tools of how to have one draft, then another, update, revise, and all that. And I think at some point it will become something that is, the discussion will be owned not by Rabbe and Will, Michailo, Fabio, and Dr. Dredi and Ahmad. It's going to be a discussion probably owned by all stakeholders who are addressed by this report. But specifically with the next steps, as you see, we already have another meeting in the pipeline, it seems. We need to see how exactly with Annabelle we will follow up. But there'll be one more possibility to get it again and discuss this draft. On our end, we need to see where we are in the production process, because as you can imagine, once the report is drafted, there's a whole army of people who are waiting to start doing things with that. So there is a peer review ongoing internally in ETF. We have then an editing stage, then there's a release stage and whatnot. So there are ample possibilities to fine-tune things on our end. So this is really the message I'm trying to send. This is not the final event. It is not the final time when we discuss and never again. This is really the beginning of a conversation. My thank you list is so long that I can't even read it myself because it's written in a very awful handwriting. I have a problem with my handwriting. It's really very ugly. But essentially, I wanted to thank the NTC, Dr. Dredi and Ahmad for their support throughout the process. Of course, Rabeh for making it possible, and Will for supporting Rabeh. Fabio for his patience with a process that may not have always been fully clear. But ultimately, we are where we are, and this also brings me to the thank yous to the entire team behind this effort, Christiana, Denise, and also all the other stakeholders whom I see here, Dr. Hambala Jaber, and there's so many people that need to be thanked in addition to that, that I'm definitely going to offend somebody because I'm missing names. I'll probably remember when we say goodbye and the meeting is over, I had to say this and I had to say that. So thank you also to the interpreters for the work they do. I have no idea whether we were fast or slow, but I prefer to live in the illusion that we were just perfect and everything was translated just fine. And please keep in mind your questions that you perhaps didn't ask today, because I believe that very soon we're going to have a similar discussion in another format about the very same findings. Back to you, Denise.
Thank you, Mihailo. Well, I also have to say thanks to everyone who joined us today, and also for this experience of, acquiring more insight into the Tibet system in Palestine. And a final thank you to our conference organizers too. So have a good day, everyone, and a good week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. See
Goodbye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. And thanks, Mihailo, by the way, for leading
Of
us.
course. Thanks, Mihailo.
Thanks.
Yes.
I appreciate it. A pleasure.